What if I told you that the most powerful moment of your entire day isn't when you open your eyes, but the 3 silent seconds right before you do? Those quiet, fleeting moments between dream and waking, where the lines blur, where nothing feels quite real, but everything feels charged with meaning, are not what they seem. You've felt it before, haven't you? That brief second where your body hasn't moved, but something inside you already knows the day has begun. There's a pause, a soft hovering. You're not quite asleep, not quite awake, but in that space, in that sliver of stillness, something sacred is happening. This threshold, this mysterious veil between worlds, is where your consciousness does its most subtle, most important work. And yet, you probably never noticed. Not really. Because from the moment you begin to stir, your logical mind starts to spin. Your to-do list flashes into view. Your name returns. The story of who you are picks up like a book left open from the night before. But before that moment, just seconds before, your consciousness is somewhere else entirely. It's listening, receiving, downloading. You might recognize the signs. A dream that slips away just as you try to hold on to it. A strange weightlessness in your body. An image, a symbol, a whisper you can't quite recall but feel in your chest. Sometimes it's a moment of complete clarity. Other times, it's a sense that you've just returned from somewhere very far away. And you have. Your mind might not remember the journey, but your energy does. It lingers in the way your body feels as you stretch, in the emotion that clings to your first thoughts, in the subtle shift of your vibration that colors the rest of your day. These are not empty sensations, they are echoes, messages, traces of where your consciousness has been, because those 3 seconds are not random. They are transmissions, like a radio catching its final signal before the channel changes, like a cosmic handoff between 2 dimensions, one where time doesn't exist and another where it dominates everything. And you are the receiver, your soul, your higher awareness, your deepest self. It's been traveling all night, exploring, gathering, learning. And now, as you prepare to re-enter the physical world, it's offering you one last chance to remember, one last chance to bring something back. But most people never notice, because we're not taught to look, we're not taught to question those moments. We assume they're meaningless, a blur, a gap, a transition with no purpose. But what if that's the moment that holds the most truth? What if, in those few seconds, your soul is whispering the answers you've been searching for? What if the visions, the feelings, the flashes you so often ignore, are actually fragments of a language your subconscious understands perfectly? You see, in sleep, your consciousness is freed from the tight grip of physical reality. It moves through layers of experience, through dreams, through dimensions, through realms the waking mind cannot yet comprehend. You engage with parts of yourself you forget exist during the day. The rational mind steps aside, and something deeper takes over, something older, wiser, more whole. And when the body begins to stir, when your breath subtly changes and your awareness starts to return, that deeper part of you knows the gateway is closing. So it does what it can. It sends you signals, compressed messages, vibrations turned into symbols, emotions, glimpses, not to confuse you, but to guide you. Think back to a time you woke up and felt something you couldn't explain. Maybe you felt peace, maybe you felt dread. Maybe there was an image in your mind, a person, a place, a light, and you couldn't tell if it was part of a dream or something more. Maybe it vanished before you could grasp it, but the feeling stayed with you, didn't it? That's because it mattered. That was your consciousness handing you a key. A key to something you saw, felt, or understood in a state beyond language, beyond logic. But to receive it fully, you would have needed to pause, to be still in that moment, to listen. That's why this matters. Because every night, you travel through the unseen. And every morning, you return carrying pieces of that invisible world. Not in your memory, always, but in your energy, in your intuition, in your dreams. And the moment of re-entry, the threshold between worlds, is your chance to catch those pieces before they dissolve. It's the moment the soul knocks, gently, to see if you're paying attention. This is why some mornings feel different. You can't explain it, but you know something's shifted. You feel softer or stronger. You wake with an idea, a knowing, or a question that wasn't there the night before. You might brush it off as coincidence, you might forget it completely, but what if you didn't? What if you began to greet those 3 seconds as a sacred space? What if you trained yourself to listen, to stay present, even for just a breath, before the mind fully clicks back on? Because in that space, your consciousness is still open, the veil is still thin, and the messages are still flowing, not from outside of you, but from within, from the parts of yourself that live beyond the noise, beyond the mask, beyond the roles you play every day. These parts are always speaking, but we're usually too distracted to hear them, except, perhaps, in that tiny sliver of time when the world hasn't fully returned and your soul hasn't fully left. You are not just a body waking up in a bed, you are a multi-layered being transitioning between frequencies, and in that in-between space, you are more receptive, more intuitive, and more connected than you realize. These are the sacred seconds, the forgotten seconds. The ones where your dreams collapse into metaphor and your higher self tries one last time to reach you. So the next time you wake up, pause, just for a moment. Don't reach for your phone. Don't open your eyes too fast. Breathe, feel, ask. You might be surprised at what you receive. Because consciousness is not something that turns off and on like a switch. It's a flow, a continuum. And in those 3 seconds before your eyes open, you're standing in a doorway. 1 foot in the realm of spirit, 1 foot in the world of form. And if you're willing to notice, to feel, to listen, you might just carry something back with you, something the rest of the world is too busy to notice, something meant only for you. It feels like you're waking up, your eyes flutter open, the ceiling comes into focus, the weight of the blankets reintroduces itself, and the sounds of the world begin to bleed back in. But what if I told you this moment isn't a beginning at all? It's a return from somewhere deeper, older, quieter. You're not becoming conscious, you're coming back to consciousness, the kind that fits within the frame of a body, a name, a day. But your consciousness? It never left, it never stopped, it was never off. While your body rested, while the outside world faded into silence, you were still moving, still sensing, still learning, not in the way you've been taught to define learning, not with books or thoughts or language, but in a far more mysterious way. You were experiencing the kind of knowing that doesn't arrive through reason. It rises through symbols, emotions, and sensations that linger long after the dream has dissolved. That's the part no one explains to you, that waking up isn't the moment consciousness begins again. It's the moment you re-enter the role you left behind when your soul slipped out during sleep. Imagine your consciousness like a deep-sea diver. Every night, it plunges beneath the surface of this world, below logic, beyond language, into the dark waters of the subconscious, the soul, and perhaps even realms you've forgotten how to see. And in the morning, when you wake, that diver resurfaces. But it doesn't return empty-handed. No, it brings something with it. It brings back treasures, some small and strange, others so luminous they can change your life if you know how to read them. These treasures aren't always crystal clear. Sometimes they're fragments. A feeling, a sudden idea, a strange knowing that wasn't there before. You've felt it. That moment just after you open your eyes, before your mind floods with lists and schedules and the memory of who you are. There's a stillness there, isn't there? A soft, in-between space where something ancient whispers, a flicker of a dream, a phrase that doesn't make sense but feels important, a sense of peace or urgency that didn't come from your waking life. And if you don't rush too quickly into your day, you might feel something even deeper, a truth that can't quite be named, but rests quietly in your chest, as if waiting for you to notice. Because you see, the dream doesn't end when you open your eyes. It shifts, it becomes something subtler, more invisible. It transforms into what we often dismiss as intuition or gut feelings, as if those things were any less sacred. But what if they are the very echoes of where you've just been? What if that sudden insight, that quiet knowing about someone's energy, that nudge to call someone, that pull to go a different direction, what if that's not coming from nowhere? What if that's your consciousness, still humming from the journey it just returned from? You've been conditioned to believe that sleep is unconsciousness, a blank void where nothing real happens. But you've never truly been unconscious. Even in your deepest sleep, your awareness is still active, just not in the way your waking mind understands. While your ego sleeps, your essence is awake, exploring, reflecting, healing, remembering. And so, when you wake up, you're not booting up like a machine, you're reintegrating. Re-entering a limited space after touching the limitless. Sliding back into the narrow confines of identity after floating in something formless and free. And that's why it can feel so jarring sometimes. That heaviness you feel in the morning, the disorientation, the sense that something slipped through your fingers, that's not just grogginess, that's the weight of returning. Of compressing a vast, multi-layered experience into the shape of a human story again. Like trying to carry ocean water in your cupped hands, something always escapes. You can't remember the whole dream. You can't always decode the message, but the impression of it is still inside you, and it colors everything. This is why your mornings matter more than you think. That 3-second window before your thoughts fully switch on is sacred. It's the handoff point, where one version of you passes the baton to the next. The more you rush past it, the more you miss the gold. But if you learn to be still, even for just a moment, you'll start to feel the truth of where you've just been. The insights aren't loud. They don't shout, they shimmer, and if you move too quickly, they vanish. Not because they weren't real, but because they exist in a different rhythm. One your waking mind has been taught to ignore. Have you ever noticed how, on some mornings, you wake up with the answer to a question you didn't even remember asking? Or a sudden calm about something that used to cause panic? Or a strange sense that something's about to change, even though nothing obvious has happened yet? That's not coincidence. That's your consciousness, not beginning again, but bringing something back, reintegrating subtle truths that your soul has gathered while your body lay still. And just like a diver bringing back pearls from the deep, your job isn't to question whether the treasure is real. Your job is to receive it, to honor it, to sit with what you've been given. Sometimes that gift will make sense instantly. Other times, it'll unfold slowly, like a seed cracking open over days or weeks. But it's always meaningful, always intentional, and always part of your evolution. So when you open your eyes tomorrow, remember, you didn't just wake up, you returned. You crossed back over a threshold, carrying truths your mind doesn't yet understand, but your soul never forgets. And if you listen closely, in that quiet moment before the world rushes in, you might just hear the echo of where you've been, and the invitation of who you're becoming. What if I told you that when you begin to wake up, your brain doesn't even realize it yet? That, for a few precious moments, you're caught in a strange, mystical overlap. Your body beginning to prepare for the world, but your consciousness still floating in another one. This is the part no one talks about, not because it isn't real, but because it's subtle, invisible, scientific on one hand, spiritual on the other. And yet, if you've ever woken up and felt like you were somewhere in between, somewhere half here, half elsewhere, you've already brushed up against this secret. Right before you fully regain control of your limbs, your thoughts, your identity, something strange happens. Your brain and your body don't wake up at the same time. Your physical system starts to activate first. Your muscles begin to tense, your breathing shifts, and your nervous system prepares itself to move, to speak, to be, again in the world. But your conscious mind? It's still elsewhere. It's still immersed in a slower, deeper rhythm of awareness. A rhythm not governed by logic or language, but by feeling, symbolism, and raw energetic perception. This is the result of your brain transitioning between powerful states of consciousness. During sleep, especially in the deepest stages, your brain operates in delta waves, a slow, rhythmic pattern associated with deep healing, unconscious processing, and cellular repair. As you begin to wake, your brain begins to move into the theta state, a frequency often associated with lucid dreaming, subconscious access, and spiritual insight. It is during this shift, this delicate, transitional dance between delta and theta, that the magic happens. Not because you are fully asleep, and not because you are fully awake, but because you are neither. You are both, a hybrid. In those moments, your mind is in an altered state. You are not entirely tethered to your identity, your name, your story. You haven't yet remembered who you're supposed to be today. You haven't remembered your worries, your obligations, your past. Instead, your consciousness is still fluid, still expanded. still partially immersed in the realm it's been exploring all night. And because of that, something unique becomes possible. You are more intuitive, more sensitive, more open to receiving. Have you ever had a thought come to you just as you were waking up that felt like truth? Something you didn't reason your way into, but simply knew in your bones? That's not coincidence. That's the theta state in action. It's your consciousness operating without the filter of the analytical mind, without the distortion of doubt, without the interruptions of daily noise. It's your purest knowing, unshaped by habit or resistance, and it often surfaces during this transition, before your brain fully catches up. Scientists have long studied brainwave transitions, mapping out the way consciousness appears to shift in and out of focus depending on neural oscillations. But here's what they rarely talk about. Those shifts aren't just biological, they are dimensional. They reflect something deeper than chemical processes. They are reflections of where your awareness is placing its attention. You are not just a brain generating thoughts, you are consciousness using a brain as a tool. And in the moments before you wake, that tool is still tuned to a frequency that doesn't quite belong to this world. That's why the waking process feels different on different days. Some mornings you jolt awake, other times you rise gently, as if being lifted from a sea of light. Some days you carry an emotion you can't explain, a sadness, a clarity, a warmth that seems to come from nowhere. But it doesn't come from nowhere, it comes from the state you were just in. The state your brain still partially lingers in. A non-ordinary reality where your senses are not yet bound by the physical, where time is more like breath than numbers on a clock. And here's the real mystery. During this window, you are accessible. Your soul is accessible. The veil between the unconscious and the conscious, the spiritual and the physical, is at its thinnest. This is why some people experience sudden insights, visitations, even out-of-body sensations, as they begin to wake. Their consciousness is still expansive, still interacting with non-physical layers of reality. The brain hasn't tightened the focus yet. The aperture is still wide open. If you've ever woken up and felt like you were still dreaming, or felt like something had just left the room, or like you were still somewhere else, you're not imagining it, you're remembering. Your physical system might be gearing up for movement, for speech, for thought, but your awareness is still drifting through inner space. And that space is real. Not real in the way we define material objects, but real in the way energy and consciousness always are. It's a reality that responds to your attention, and in this hybrid state, that attention is pure. It's not yet fragmented by distraction. Think about what this means. If the brain's waking process is slower than we think, if your body can start to rise while your soul is still mid-flight, then you're walking a tightrope between worlds every single morning. And you don't even realize it. Most people never pause long enough to notice what they're actually feeling in those first moments. They rush to their routines, check their phones, reattach to the mask they wear each day. But underneath that rush, something sacred is happening. A convergence, a recalibration, a moment of immense power. Because when you exist in that overlap, you're not fully limited. You're still touching the realm of infinite possibility. You're still able to perceive symbolically, to receive intuitively, to understand emotionally what your waking mind might spend days trying to figure out. And if you knew how to stay just a moment longer, if you practiced stillness, awareness, breath, you might carry back something important, a truth, a direction, a sense of alignment you didn't have the day before. This is why ancient traditions have always regarded the moments before waking as holy, not because they're quiet, but because they're potent. Because your brain hasn't yet resumed the full rigidity of its waking patterns. Your mind is still soft, your identity is still malleable, and your soul is still whispering. So what can you do with this? You can begin to honor those moments. Instead of rushing to re-enter the world, stay, just for a few breaths. Let your consciousness linger in that middle space. Observe what you feel. Ask silently if there's anything you need to remember. You may not hear words, but you might feel a sense of knowing. That's how truth speaks in this state, not in noise, but in resonance, because your brain thinks you're still asleep, and in many ways, you are. But that's the gift. It's not a flaw in the system, it's a portal, a window where you're allowed to exist in both realms at once. And if you begin to notice it, to cherish it, to engage with it, you'll find it begins to respond, not with explanations, but with clarity, with peace, with the kind of insight that can only come from the part of you that remembers what the rest of you forgets. That is the power of the in-between. That is the secret your brain doesn't even know it's keeping. And it's waiting for you, every morning, just before you remember who you're supposed to be. There are mornings when you wake up with a strange feeling clinging to you like mist, a whisper of something you can't quite name, a dream you almost remembered but lost the moment you sat up. Maybe it was someone's face, a sentence half-formed, a place you've never been, but somehow knew with certainty. And even though the details faded quickly, something remained, a trace, a pull, a kind of echo. You try to move on with your day, but that sensation, that almost memory, lingers in the background, nudging at the edge of your awareness like a hand tapping gently on your shoulder. That's not random. It's not meaningless. It's what happens when your consciousness tries to bring something back through a door that is already closing. Your dreams aren't just stories, they're messages. Not always literal, but always layered in meaning. They come from a place that doesn't speak in the language of logic or timelines. They arrive as symbols, metaphors, vibrations. And while you sleep, your consciousness swims freely through this ocean of information, decoding what it can, sorting what you need, discarding what you don't. But as morning approaches, and you begin your slow return to the physical, something urgent begins to happen. The window is narrowing, the veil is thinning, and your consciousness starts to rush. It doesn't panic, but it knows. It knows that the gate between the subconscious and waking awareness is about to narrow, not slam shut, but become harder to pass through. And so it begins its work. In those final moments before waking, your consciousness tries to translate everything it experienced into something you can carry with you. Not all of it will fit. Most of it won't. That's why your dreams often break apart like shattered glass the moment your feet hit the floor. But certain pieces slip through. A name, a sound, a color that shouldn't mean anything but does. A dream fragment that haunts you throughout the day without explanation. Those are not accidents, they're codes. And here's the fascinating part. The reason why you do remember the things you weren't supposed to. The reason you wake with fragments from other timelines, memories that feel borrowed, or insights you didn't learn in this life. It's because your subconscious is not just a container. It doesn't merely store things, it's a bridge, a translator, a gatekeeper, and a guide. When you enter the dream world, you're not stepping into a fantasy. You're accessing a field of consciousness that is vaster than anything your waking mind can comprehend. You are touching places that exist outside the rules you've grown accustomed to, outside time, outside form. You might visit future echoes or past lives. You might enter realms that contain truths your ego would never accept in the daylight. And while you may not consciously remember everything, your deeper self does. It absorbs, it understands, and it brings back what's most important. Sometimes that return shows up as déjà vu. You walk into a room you've never seen before and your stomach flips because you have seen it. Not in waking life, but in a dream long forgotten. You recognize someone you've never met, and something in you softens or tightens before a single word is spoken. This isn't illusion. It's not imagination. It's evidence that something crossed over. A thread from the other side of the veil made it into your waking pattern. Other times it shows up as premonition. You dream of a conversation, and days later, it happens. You sense a mood, a tension, a shift, before the world catches up. These moments can be subtle or startling, but either way, they reveal something important, that your consciousness isn't confined to the present moment. It travels, it feels beyond, and it brings you back signs, if you're willing to notice. The reason most people miss these signs is because they've been trained to dismiss the language of the subconscious. You've been taught to value facts over feeling, structure over symbolism. But your subconscious doesn't care about any of that. It speaks in image, sensation, mood. It speaks in meaning, not words. And because it never stops recording, never stops filtering through the energetic noise of your day, it constantly feeds your waking mind little clues, not to overwhelm you, but to awaken you. This is why dream fragments sometimes refuse to let go, because they're meant to stay with you. They're anchors, not leftovers. Your mind may not know what they mean, but your heart does. That's why certain dreams will wake you with tears, others with fear, some with a strange sense of peace so powerful it makes you question what's real. These emotions aren't just responses, they're messengers. In those last few seconds before you wake, your consciousness chooses what to embed. It's deliberate, and it's wise. It knows your waking mind can't carry everything, it would collapse under the weight. So it filters. It compresses entire journeys into a single feeling, a subtle insight, a knowing you can't explain. That's why sometimes the most powerful messages are the ones you can't articulate. You just feel different, and that feeling shapes your choices, your interactions, even your path, quietly, but undeniably. And yet, even though your dreams pass through this filter, not all of it stays in the background. Sometimes, something slips through too clearly, a piece of a past life, a vision of what's to come, or a truth your ego isn't ready to face. When that happens, it doesn't feel like a dream. It feels like a memory, not one you lived in this lifetime, but one that belongs to you nonetheless. You remember what you weren't supposed to, not because it's dangerous, but because it's disruptive. It shakes the illusion, it cracks the shell, and sometimes, that's exactly what your soul needs. So you carry it. Maybe it bothers you, maybe it inspires you, but either way, it stays. A phrase you heard in a dream repeats in your mind like a mantra. A symbol, a staircase, a raven, a broken clock, shows up over and over again. A person you've never met appears again and again in your sleep, like a character you didn't write but deeply love. These aren't mistakes, these are transmissions from the bridge, your subconscious giving you more than insight, it's giving you continuity, because your soul remembers everything. Your higher self sees the whole map, and in the space between sleep and waking, you are allowed to see just enough to guide your next steps. Not the whole truth, but a shimmer of it. A compass, a breadcrumb. Enough to stir something inside you that says, pay attention, lay. So the next time you wake up with a feeling you can't shake, a symbol you don't understand, or a sense that something just passed through you, don't dismiss it, don't file it away as a dream, sit with it. Feel it, write it down, speak it aloud. Because that fragment may be the seed of something your soul has been trying to show you for years. You are not remembering by accident, you are remembering because something inside you has decided. It's time. What if I told you that in the final seconds before you wake up, your soul is still working, not dreaming, not resting, but reviewing, aligning, running a sacred scan across all levels of your being. While your physical body begins its return to motion, and your breath subtly shifts to the rhythm of wakefulness, something deeper within you pauses for one last look inward. It's quiet, but it's powerful. A final moment of stillness before re-entry. You may not notice it with your eyes closed and your room still dark, but your higher self does. It's there, performing what can only be described as a spiritual systems check. In those seconds, your consciousness hasn't yet fully slipped back into the identity you wear in the world. You haven't remembered your name, your responsibilities, your opinions. You haven't reactivated the familiar stories you tell yourself about who you are, what's wrong with your life, or what the day ahead is supposed to look like. Instead, something far more intelligent is still moving through you, reviewing not only the dreams you just had, but the unspoken themes of your life. It's as if your soul pauses at the border of two worlds and asks itself the essential questions: what did we learn? What still needs to be healed? What truth are we avoiding? Where are we not in alignment? You don't consciously hear these questions, but you feel them. Sometimes it's a whisper in your chest. Other times, it's a knowing that lingers with you for hours after you wake. And often, it's just a mood, a subtle, emotional imprint that you can't explain but cannot shake. That's your higher self, trying to deliver insight without words. Because in this final stage of waking, the soul doesn't communicate through logic or noise, it transmits through resonance, through feeling, through frequency, and if you're sensitive enough, present enough, you can begin to feel these downloads as they arrive. They don't always come as lightning bolts or visions. Sometimes they're just clarity, a sense of peace about something you've been wrestling with, a sudden answer to a question you didn't even know you were asking, or a strange emotional shift, a pull towards someone, a distance from something else, a deep inner cue that something within you has rearranged. These are not random. They are soul-level messages encoded in those final seconds of transition, a sacred handoff from your non-physical awareness to your waking self. During sleep, your consciousness is unbound. It travels, explores, interacts with layers of reality that the daytime mind cannot grasp. You connect with symbols, archetypes, even aspects of your own psyche that are inaccessible through language. You undergo healing, you process, you release, you remember who you are beyond the mask. And as you begin to wake, the essence of those experiences tries to condense into something that your waking self can hold, a fragment of a dream, a rush of emotion, a word that echoes in your mind without explanation. These are soul artifacts, glimpses of the work you've done in the invisible. But there's something else that happens here, something most people never realize. In these final seconds, your soul isn't just checking in on the night behind you, it's previewing the day ahead. It's sensing the energetic terrain you're about to walk into, the people, the choices, the energy fields you'll encounter, and in its infinite wisdom, it prepares you. Sometimes by bringing a specific insight to the surface, sometimes by alerting you through a feeling of unease or anticipation, and sometimes by gently nudging you with a single word, image, or sensation that seems out of place, but isn't. It's the beginning of guidance. This is what makes this moment so sacred. It's not passive, it's interactive. It's your soul fine-tuning your field before you step back into the game. And if you're listening, you'll begin to feel the intelligence behind it, the quiet recalibration, the inner question that vibrates through you. Are you in alignment with what you came here to do today? Not your to-do list, not your social obligations, but your deeper purpose, your soul contract, your real path. And if the answer is no, the soul doesn't judge. It adjusts. It offers. It presents you with an emotion, a memory, a discomfort, a longing, whatever it takes to wake you not just physically, but spiritually. To remind you, gently, of where you've veered off track. And to guide you back, subtly, into the flow that was always meant for you. There's a reason some people wake up with tears in their eyes, or with a feeling of gratitude that defies circumstance, or with a heavy weight in their chest that they can't explain. These are not errors, these are transmissions, messages from the part of you that never sleeps, the part that watches, guides, and loves you from beyond the noise. It's scanning the emotional landscape, measuring what you've integrated, and offering course corrections before the static of the world gets too loud to hear anything else. It's in this moment that soul-level downloads are most accessible, not because they're rare, but because you're finally quiet enough to receive them. Before the mind resumes its chatter, before you reach for your phone, before the rush of thoughts floods in, there is stillness. In that stillness, your higher consciousness speaks. Not in sentences, but in vibration. It might show you an image of someone you haven't thought of in years, or bring back the scent of a place long gone, or give you a word, just one, that echoes all day for no reason you can name. These are keys, and your job is not to decode them instantly, your job is to carry them, to hold them in your awareness, and allow them to unfold. Because the soul's messages aren't always meant for the mind, they're meant for the heart, for the body, for the energetic field you're living in. And when they arrive, they don't ask you to understand, they ask you to trust, to feel, to respond in the quiet language of intuition, and in that response, your path begins to shift. Not in dramatic ways, always, but in the way a river gently adjusts its course over time. You begin to say yes to things that feel aligned. You begin to walk away from things that no longer carry your name. You begin to live not from memory, but from presence. This is the hidden gift of those final seconds before waking. It's not just a return to the world, it's a recalibration of your inner compass, a chance for the soul to whisper before the day grows too loud. And if you begin to pay attention to that whisper, something miraculous happens. You stop living by default, you stop reacting, you start responding, living, choosing, creating with the full awareness of who you really are. So tomorrow, when your eyes flutter open and your body begins to stir, stay still for just a moment longer. Ask yourself, what did I bring back with me? What truth is waiting to be felt? What does my soul want me to know today? You might not hear an answer in words, but you will feel it. And that feeling, that quiet, soul-given knowing, is the beginning of everything. There is a moment just before you fully wake where something inside you is still in deep conversation. You may not hear the words, you may not remember the voices. But if you've ever opened your eyes with a strong sense of knowing, a strange clarity about something that had previously confused you, or an unexpected calm where there was once anxiety, then you've felt it. Something spoke to you, not from above or beyond, but from within. And while the world was silent, while your body rested still and your ego took its temporary leave, that part of you, the deeper part, finally had a chance to be heard. You've likely been told that your thoughts are yours, your feelings are yours, and your choices come from a singular self, but that's only one layer of the truth. The reality is, your consciousness isn't just a single voice inside your head, it's a symphony, a layered intelligence, an inner ecosystem of awarenesses that exist beyond the narrow filter of the waking mind. And while you sleep, these layers emerge, they communicate, they organize, they guide. You are not just you are many yous. Not in a fractured way, but in a deeply unified, intelligent way, like different instruments, playing one great piece of music. And in the final seconds before you wake, they meet. Some call this meeting intuition, some call it dreams. But what it truly is a council, an internal council of selves, aspects of you that dwell in deeper, older, quieter dimensions of your being. And when the outer noise subsides, when your conscious attention no longer grips your to-do list or identity, these aspects gather. They don't shout, they don't argue, they share. They bring what they've seen, what they've known, what you, in your waking state, have been too distracted to feel. You may think guidance must come from external sources, angels, ancestors, teachers, unseen beings beyond this plane. And sometimes it does. But more often than not, the clearest messages are whispered by yourself, not the self you perform during the day, but the selves that exist beneath that mask, the child you used to be, the version of you from another lifetime, the higher self watching patiently from above the fog, even the future self, the one who has already lived through the struggle you're now facing. All of them are present, and when you sleep, they step forward. They don't all speak in language. Some speak in images, others through feeling. A few communicate through dreams that feel more like memories. But in that small window before you wake, they merge. It's not chaotic. It's deeply intelligent, like threads being woven together before you open your eyes. This is why you sometimes wake up with an answer to a question you never consciously asked. It's why a complex decision that tormented you yesterday suddenly feels simple. Why a situation that triggered you yesterday now feels irrelevant, because something has shifted, your council has met, and the message has been delivered. You may not remember the meeting. That's not a failure, it's protection. These messages aren't always meant for the surface of your mind. They're meant for your energy field, for your behavior, for your instinct. So they drop into your being quietly, like seeds into fertile soil. You'll notice their effect not as a thunderbolt, but as a gentle certainty, a new way of responding. A sudden wave of self-trust. You won't know why you know, only that you do. And that's how the council works. It doesn't try to convince your conscious mind. It recalibrates your inner compass. But here's what's most extraordinary. This isn't some random event. It's a process, a rhythm, a design. It happens every single night, whether you remember it or not. And especially in those last few seconds before you wake, your internal council finalizes what needs to be integrated. Imagine it like the closing of a sacred ceremony. The pieces have been reviewed, the emotions processed, the soul's insights gathered. And now, as you begin to stir, they come together and say, "This is what you'll carry forward. This is what matters now." You might have noticed that these mornings feel different. You don't wake up with scattered thoughts. You wake up with a strange stillness, a groundedness, a sense of alignment that feels undeserved, given the chaos of the world around you. That's because it wasn't created by your mind, it was gifted by your soul. Your council didn't just process your day, it elevated you, cleared energy you were holding, rewired beliefs that no longer served, and in doing so, gave you a new level to walk into. Sometimes, this comes with a dream. Other times, just a feeling. Occasionally, you'll wake with a clear phrase echoing in your mind. A sentence that doesn't make sense, but feels charged with meaning. That's not imagination, that's transcription. A final note passed from one level of self to another before the gate closes. And if you're paying attention, you'll feel the weight of it, the reverence, the precision. Of course, the mind wants proof, the ego wants to control the source of its wisdom. But this realm doesn't operate like that. It doesn't give you charts and timelines, it gives you resonance. It speaks in clarity without explanation. Because these deeper parts of you, these layers of self, are not here to be understood. They're here to guide you, and the more you learn to trust them, the more your life begins to unfold with a kind of grace that logic could never create. It's humbling to realize that you are never alone with your thoughts. Even when you feel lost, confused, or disconnected, something in you is still working, still listening, still guiding. There is a part of you that knows, even when your conscious mind does not, and it's in those final moments before waking, that space where the body is still half asleep, but the soul is almost home, where that knowing becomes activated. You may think that wisdom comes through hard effort, but some of the most profound truths you'll ever carry were whispered to you while you slept, given not through striving, but through surrender. These are gifts from your inner counsel, not designed to impress you, but to align you, to steer you toward your next step without fear, to remind you that all the answers you seek have been living inside you all along, just waiting for the silence to speak. So the next time you wake up feeling different, calmer, clearer, even if nothing has changed, honor it. Sit with it. Let it unfold. Because something has changed. Something ancient within you has just handed you the next chapter, and your only task is to listen to what your life begins to tell you next. What if I told you that every toss, every turn, every twitch you feel just before you wake up isn't random, that the way your body moves in those final moments of sleep is part of a deeper language, one your consciousness has been speaking long before you learn to form words. You may think you're simply stretching or shifting, but something far more intelligent is at work. Every micro-movement, every subtle jolt, every breath that changes pace is part of a closing ritual, your body's way of encoding the last traces of a dream, a message, a truth that your soul doesn't want you to forget. You've probably felt it before. That sudden jerk right before you wake, like your body is catching itself from a fall. Or maybe you've stirred, opened your eyes, and with that movement came a rush of memory, a dream you didn't know you had, now flashing in fragments behind your eyelids. These aren't accidents. These are signals. Your body and your consciousness are working together, syncing in perfect rhythm during the final seconds of sleep, not just to prepare you for the waking world, but to seal the wisdom you gathered during the night into your emotional system. Because here's the truth. Dreams don't just live in your mind, they imprint themselves into your nervous system, into your breath, your posture, your feelings. You may not recall every detail, but your body remembers, your mood remembers. That strange sadness upon waking, the sudden inspiration to call someone, the unexplained anxiety or calm that follows you through your morning, all of it can be traced back to what happened in the invisible layers of your consciousness while you slept. You didn't lose the dream, you became it. This is where the language of motion becomes sacred. As your soul prepares to leave the dream space, your body assists in the transfer of information. It translates symbols into sensations, metaphors into energy. A twist in your spine, a tightening in your chest, a sudden breath, each movement part of a choreography designed to store what can't be spoken. Your body moves because the message is moving. The energy is grounding. The feeling is being filed into your inner map, the emotional GPS that guides your choices long after the memory fades. Imagine your soul carrying a truth through the night, something it discovered, healed, or remembered, but when it returns to the body, it has no keyboard, no mouth. So it uses the only tools it has, your breath, your heartbeat, your muscles. That's why sometimes, the moment you roll over, a memory hits you, or you feel a presence. Or you suddenly cry, and you don't know why. Your consciousness is anchoring something, not into your logical mind, but into your emotional core, into the space where decisions are made before thought even begins. Dreams are not just stories, they are frequencies. Each one carries a tone, a vibration that communicates directly with your inner world. And in those final seconds before you wake, your body becomes the conductor of that vibration. It shifts, it adjusts. It breathes in just the right rhythm to internalize the message, even if your waking mind never catches it. The body becomes a translator, encoding feeling, not fact. And what you carry forward from that encoding becomes part of your intuition. Have you ever noticed how some days you wake up and immediately know something is off, even if you can't explain it? Or how you wake with clarity on something that had you confused the day before, and you didn't even dream about it, at least not that you can remember? That's because you're not just remembering images, you're absorbing emotional blueprints. The dream may vanish, but the direction it gave you doesn't. You'll feel it in the conversations you're drawn to, in the people you pull closer or push away, in the way you speak to yourself that day. That's the dream, alive and moving through you. This is the miracle of the mind-body-soul connection. While you sleep, your consciousness explores realms unbound by gravity or logic. And when it returns, it can't bring back the map, it brings back the compass. A compass made of emotions, gut feelings, body language, and subtle movements that carry the truth of what was experienced. That's why it matters how you wake up. That's why the body doesn't leap, it stirs, it rolls, stretches, breathes in fragments. Because something ancient in you knows that too much noise too fast will break the code before it's delivered. You may think you're just adjusting your pillow, just shifting onto your side, but in those motions, your soul is embedding its story into your cells. Your fingertips might remember the texture of a dream lover's hand. Your breath might still echo the rhythm of another reality. Your skin might feel warmth from a sun that doesn't exist in this world. And all of it is real, not in the way matter is real, but in the way that energy imprints. You are waking, yes, but you're also integrating. And sometimes, integration is messy. That's why you wake up and feel strange, or angry, or deeply moved with no clear source. It's why you feel like crying before your alarm even rings. Your soul has just traveled through dimensions, resolved hidden conflicts, reunited with energies, shed old layers, and now, your body, this sacred vessel, carries that transformation in its bones, in its tissues, in its posture. The body tells the story even when the mind cannot. This is why spiritual traditions across cultures speak of honoring the moment of waking, not rushing, not reaching for distraction, but allowing the full return of the soul to be gentle, conscious, sacred. Because your first movements are not just mechanical, they are messages. Your soul is speaking through the body, and if you're willing to listen, to feel, to be still just long enough, you can begin to understand what it's saying. So the next time you jolt awake, pay attention. Was it fear, or was it an arrival? Was it anxiety, or a message too urgent to wait? And when you shift in bed, when you exhale deeply, or turn your face to the window, know that you're not just waking up, you're receiving something. Your body is the final page of a letter your soul has been writing all night long, and how you move, how you breathe, how you feel in those first moments, that is the message. You don't need to remember the whole dream. You don't need the details. You need the feeling, because it's the feeling that guides you. It's the feeling that knows the way. And your body, wise and ancient in its own right, will hold that feeling for you long after the story fades. It will carry it into your choices, your expressions, your relationships. This is why honoring your waking state isn't a luxury, it's a ritual, a daily return, a sacred remembering. Because even as the dream dissolves, the message remains, and it moves in you, with every breath, every step, every choice. It moves. There are mornings when you open your eyes, and everything feels slightly off. The light filtering through the window seems too sharp, too precise. The air feels thicker, like you're moving through something invisible. Colors seem saturated, almost glowing. Your body feels both heavy and weightless at the same time. You look around the room you've seen every day of your life, but for a brief moment, it feels foreign, like you're a visitor in your own world. This sensation, this strange in-between quality, isn't your imagination. It's not grogginess. It's not just waking up slowly. It's the echo. The dream world does not vanish the moment you return to waking life. it leaves behind traces, a resonance, a vibrational afterglow that bleeds through the veil separating sleep and awareness. This is the echo effect, and if you've ever felt it, you know how disorienting and sacred it can be. It's that sensation of still being half there even though your eyes are open. That lingering feeling that part of you hasn't fully arrived yet, as though your soul is still walking a few steps behind your body, gradually catching up. You see, when you sleep, your consciousness shifts into a different frequency. Not metaphorically, literally. Your brainwaves change, your energetic field expands, and you move into a state where the rules of time, form, and logic no longer apply. You become fluid, boundless. You're no longer confined to your personality, your name, your identity. You dissolve into something more subtle, more honest. And while in that state, your soul recalibrates. It heals. It remembers. It explores. It vibrates in tune with dimensions you forget in the daylight. But when it's time to return, when the signal begins to pull you back into your body, into the weight of form, that transition isn't instant. It's a glide, not a switch. And during that glide, there's a delay, a bleed-through. You are tuned to one station in the dream, you begin tuning back to another in the waking world. And in those overlapping moments, you exist in both. This is why the world can feel distorted when you wake. It's not that you're disconnected, it's that you're still in transit. The echo effect is not just emotional, it's energetic. Your field is still vibrating at the frequency of the dream space, which is more expansive, more receptive, more transparent. It's as if your energy is still tuned to the signal of the stars, and only slowly returns to the gravity of Earth. And so, for a few moments, sometimes minutes, your senses remain open, raw, unfiltered. You can feel what others are feeling. You can sense things that don't make sense. You're more honest, more fragile, and yet more you than at any other time in the day. This is not a glitch in your system, it's a gift. It's a sacred window of alignment where your inner and outer realities momentarily overlap, where the truths your soul touched in the dream state are still within reach. But here's the thing, most people miss it. They mistake it for confusion or fog. They rush past it, grab their phone, jump into routine, and never allow the echo to speak. But if you're quiet, if you remain still just a little longer, you'll hear it. You'll feel it in your chest like a tuning fork still vibrating from the song it just played. And the song? That's the frequency of your soul remembering what it came here for. There's a reason the world feels almost too real in those moments. That hyperclarity is not a distortion, it's perception at its purest. Before your identity kicks back in, before your mental scripts begin to rerun, before your thoughts fill the silence with noise. That clarity, the way objects seem to glow, the way sounds seem to echo more deeply, the way time feels suspended, is the result of you still being tuned to a higher frequency. The dream state is not less real, it's more real, it's simply less dense. And when you bring that frequency into the density of the physical world, the result is often awe, confusion, or a surreal calm. You've probably experienced it more than you realize, waking from a dream that won't let go, a feeling that follows you for hours, maybe even days. You might not remember the dream, but the emotional imprint is still running through you like a background program. That's the echo. It isn't bound by memory, it's vibrational, and it doesn't need your logical mind to understand it. It only needs your presence. Sometimes, the echo arrives as sadness, a melancholy you can't trace. Other times, it shows up as joy, a lightness in your chest, a smile you didn't expect. And occasionally, it shows up as a sense of being watched over, as if something followed you home from the other side. That feeling of being wrapped in a blanket of invisible energy, that's not imagination. That's your soul still adjusting, still coming back down from the elevated frequency it just moved through. You may notice animals behave differently around you during this time. Children may look at you longer. Technology may glitch or respond oddly. These are all symptoms of resonance. Your field hasn't fully stabilized yet. You're still shining with a frequency that doesn't quite match the consensus reality. And while this may seem inconvenient, it's actually sacred. It means you brought something back, a piece of the dream, a strand of the wisdom, a trace of the realm that most forget the moment their alarm goes off. Your soul doesn't just travel at night, it transforms. And when it returns, it often carries codes, not always as ideas, but as energy. These codes need time to settle. And the echo is how they announce themselves. The longer you resist the urge to drown that echo in noise, distraction, or urgency, the more it reveals. This is why the most creative, intuitive, and visionary ideas often come in the hour after waking. The veil is still thin, the signal is still strong, and if you're attuned, you'll start to recognize it. You'll begin to tell the difference between a normal morning and a sacred one. You'll know when you're carrying something back from the other side. You'll protect that space. You'll learn to sit in silence, breathe slower, and let the world reform around you without rushing. Because that echo, that gentle frequency humming in your bones, is more than residue. It's direction. It guides you into your day with purpose. It filters your decisions. It nudges your awareness towards synchronicities that only make sense if you've listened. The echo doesn't shout. It doesn't explain. It just resonates. And like all resonance, it will either fade if ignored or amplify if embraced. So the next time you wake up and the world feels strange, don't run from it. Don't shake it off. Sit in it. Let it stretch. Let it vibrate through you, because what you're feeling is your consciousness remembering where it just was, and deciding what of that realm it wants to bring into this one. You are not just waking up to a new day. You are returning from a journey, and the echo is the last whisper of that journey's truth. Let it echo through your choices. Let it ripple through your conversations. Let it color your perception just a little longer, because sometimes the most important messages are the ones that arrive not with a voice, but with a frequency, and you were never meant to forget them. You were meant to feel them. What if I told you that the last 3 seconds before you wake up could contain an entire lifetime? That in the time it takes for your eyelids to flutter open and for your first thought to form, your consciousness might have traveled through days, years, or even centuries of experience, without your body ever moving. It sounds impossible until you remember that time, in the realm of dreams and deep consciousness, doesn't behave the way it does in waking life. It bends, stretches, folds in on itself. Sometimes it vanishes entirely, and the final moment before you return to physical reality is the place where those distortions are most profound. You've felt this before. Maybe you drifted off for what felt like a few minutes, but dreamed an entire journey, a story so vivid, so detailed, so emotionally rich that it felt like it had to have taken hours. Maybe you experienced a sequence of events so intricate, so layered, that when you woke up, you were shocked to discover that only a few moments had passed. And sometimes, you blink awake, and a flood of images pours through you in a flash, faces, places, messages that seem to have occurred outside the normal flow of time. These aren't anomalies, they are evidence that in altered states of consciousness, time is something else entirely. It becomes fluid, malleable, subjective. In the dream world, you are not bound to time in the same way you are here. You are not held in place by the ticking of a clock or the rotation of the earth. Instead, you are moving through layers of meaning, through events that are happening outside of linear sequence. One moment you're in a childhood memory, the next, you're standing in a landscape that doesn't exist in this world but feels more familiar than anything you've ever known. This is not chaos. It is higher intelligence, moving in non-linear patterns. It is your consciousness navigating through symbolic time, emotional time, soul time. And nowhere is this more evident than in the final moment before waking, that space where your soul begins to withdraw from its nighttime explorations and condense everything it has learned, seen, or touched into something that can be carried back. It doesn't always come back in language or clear narrative. Sometimes, it comes back in sensation, in knowing, in a vibration that you carry without even realizing. But the amount of information it brings in those 3 seconds would astonish you if you could truly see it. Your mind may interpret it as a blink, a fleeting sensation, a quick flash before reality returns. But on the inside, something vast just happened. This is where science and spirituality quietly shake hands. Neuroscientists have long observed that time perception can be drastically altered during sleep, meditation, and heightened emotional states. The brain is capable of compressing experience, of stitching together complex narratives that seem to span great lengths of time in what amounts to a few seconds of real-world duration. This is often explained as the brain firing in rapid patterns, building storylines from fragments stored deep in the subconscious. But what if it's more than that? What if the brain isn't just making up stories, but receiving them? What if the reason these dreams feel so vast and meaningful is because, in some dimension, they truly are? Quantum physics introduces the idea that time is not a straight line, but a dimension much like space, that the past, present, and future may all coexist in a field of probability. Some interpretations even suggest that consciousness can interact with this field, that what we perceive as memory or premonition is actually contact with points along that timeline from a higher vantage. In that sense, your dream of an ancient lifetime or a future version of yourself may not be metaphorical at all. It may be contact with another piece of your existence, playing out simultaneously on a level your waking mind can't yet grasp. Your soul knows how to navigate these timelines. While your body sleeps and your logical mind takes a back seat, your deeper awareness explores the folds, in time like currents in an ocean. It can drop into a scene from childhood, not to relive it, but to rewire something emotional. It can move forward into a probable future, not to predict, but to prepare. It can even explore entire lifetimes, lessons, relationships, closures, that feel as real as anything in this world, even if they exist in realms you can't name. And as your soul prepares to return to waking life, all of that experience must be translated, compacted into something you can carry. So what happens? Your consciousness does what only consciousness can do. It compresses, it distills. It takes vast journeys, multi-layered stories, symbolic initiations, and folds them down into essence. A feeling, a sentence that loops in your mind all morning. A vision that flashes across your awareness just as your eyes begin to open. That flash may have contained hours of experience. The emotion you carry might be the final echo of a dream that spanned a lifetime. And the reason it lingers is because it's real, not in terms of clock time, but in terms of consciousness. It left an imprint, and that imprint can influence how you move, speak, think, and choose, long after the memory itself has faded. This is the final moment before waking. The blink that holds a universe, and most people miss it. They rush to return to the world they know, never realizing that they've just returned from a world even more vast. But your body knows, your soul knows. That moment when you hover, weightless, not quite here and not quite there, that is where the integration happens. That is where the compression completes. And that is where you can receive something truly sacred, if you're willing to be still. This is why some mornings feel different. You wake up changed, though you can't explain why. You feel wiser, lighter, more resolved, or perhaps more raw, more open, more vulnerable. That's not your imagination. That's the residue of what you just lived. What your consciousness just experienced in the folds of time that stretch far beyond what your calendar can hold. You may have had a conversation with your future self. You may have healed a wound from another lifetime. You may have witnessed a version of reality that's trying to guide your current path. All in the space of 3 seconds. All in the blink before your mind says, I am awake. And what's even more remarkable is this. It happens every day. Every morning, without fail. You are gifted a chance to carry something from the timeless into time. You don't need to understand it completely. You don't need to remember the whole story. You just need to trust the feeling it leaves behind, that sudden clarity, that strange longing, that idea that floats in out of nowhere. These are not random, they are remnants, encoded fragments of a journey beyond the clock. So the next time you wake up and feel like something just happened, even if you can't name it, pause, feel into it. Ask yourself, what did I just bring back with me? You may be surprised by what surfaces, not in words, but in presence, because time, as we know it, is only one layer of reality, and consciousness doesn't belong to the clock. It belongs to the eternal, and every morning, just before you wake, you get to touch it, even if just for a second, even if just for a breath. There's a moment, hidden in the quiet before you wake, where something more profound than a shift in consciousness is taking place. It's not just the mind coming online or the body preparing to move. It's a reunion, a merging, a subtle but powerful reintegration of what you are in the unseen, with what you appear to be in the physical. This is the moment your astral body returns. Not just returns, lands. It descends from wherever it's traveled, from whatever realms or timelines it's touched during sleep, and begins the process of anchoring itself once again inside the skin, the breath, the heartbeat of your waking self. And this moment, this re-entry, is more intense than most people realize. You may think of dreams as thoughts, scattered projections of the brain trying to process memory. But what you often call dreaming is far more than neural noise. It's travel. Your astral body, the energetic vehicle of your soul, leaves the physical form and moves through other planes of experience. This isn't a poetic metaphor. It's a real transition into layers of reality that exist parallel to the one you walk in during the day. Realms where you're not bound by time, where your awareness isn't tethered to form, where learning happens in symbols, connection happens through vibration, and movement feels more like remembering than going. But your journey must always end, or rather, pause, at the edge of waking. Your soul can explore the vastness of the unseen, but it made a choice to be here, in a body, in this life. And so, every morning, like a deep-sea diver returning to the surface, your astral self must make the delicate descent back into the vessel, and this descent isn't always smooth. Sometimes, there's turbulence. If you've ever jolted awake for no reason, body twitching violently, heart racing, air caught in your lungs, then you've felt it. If you've ever opened your eyes to the ceiling, but couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't scream, frozen in the space between paralysis and panic, then you've touched the edge of that turbulence. If you've ever felt your body vibrate as you returned to waking, or noticed your eyes flickering rapidly before you became fully conscious, that too is part of the landing process. These aren't malfunctions. They're evidence. Evidence that something left, and something is returning. The astral body is light, fluid, and multidimensional. The physical body is dense, structured, and governed by time. Reuniting the two isn't always seamless. Like a spacecraft piercing back through atmosphere, your soul re-entry can cause friction. Not danger, but intensity. The body knows. It responds, sometimes with a twitch or shiver, sometimes with full body tension, sometimes with a moment of extraordinary clarity, as if your soul had to shock itself back into your bones to ensure full presence. That moment of re-entry is sacred. It marks the collision point between the infinite and the temporary. And when you start to see it for what it is, you'll stop labeling it as random or inconvenient. You'll begin to recognize it as a portal. There's a reason why some mornings feel like rebirths. You wake with tears in your eyes and don't know why. You rise with a kind of purpose that didn't exist the night before. You feel as though something ended, or began, without a single external event. These are signs that your astral self went somewhere profound during the night, processed something your conscious mind had no words for, healed something your waking self had no courage to face. And when it returned, it brought the residue of that healing with it, not in memory, but in essence. This turbulence can also show up as confusion. You wake and can't remember who you are, not in a literal sense, but in a deeper, existential one. You know your name, your home, your life, but something feels foreign, as if the identity you've returned to doesn't quite fit the soul that came back. This sensation, while disorienting, is a sign of realignment. It means that who you're becoming is slightly out of sync with who you've been pretending to be, and in that moment of re-entry, the dissonance becomes impossible to ignore. Other times, the landing feels sharp. You're snapped into alertness at an odd hour, wide awake as if summoned. This is often a signal that something from the astral, a message, a memory, a frequency, couldn't wait for morning. Your body, sensing the urgency, pulls you out of sleep early so you can begin integrating what you've just experienced. These early wake moments can be frustrating, but they're sacred windows. The veil is still thin, your vibration is still elevated, and if you remain quiet, you may find your clearest insights in these middle-of-the-night awakenings. You might also experience re-entry as emotional weight, a sense of grief or longing you can't name. This isn't always linked to the content of your dreams, but to the contrast between where your astral self has been and where it has returned to. Sometimes, the body feels like a cage after the soul has tasted expansion. Sometimes, the return to density feels like loss, even when nothing has been taken. This is not a sign of failure. It's a sign of depth. It means you've touched something vast, and your human self is still learning how to hold it. And yet, for all its complexity, the re-entry process is also deeply wise. It happens every night, every morning, even when you don't notice. Your soul is not clumsy. It knows how to land. It knows how to adjust your nervous system, recalibrate your breath, and gently wake your mind to the right degree, unless the message it carries is urgent. Then, the descent may feel rough, not to harm you, but to ensure you remember. Because that's the quiet miracle of this process. You are not simply dreaming, you are exploring, resolving, evolving. And each time your astral body returns, it carries something with it. Maybe not in words, maybe not in visions, but in sensation, in readiness, in small but profound shifts in your perception of the world. You might not recall the dream, but your choices shift. Your reactions soften, your awareness expands. That's re-entry doing its work. That's your consciousness settling back into its temporary home, your body, with just a little more wisdom than the day before. So the next time you wake up with your heart racing, or your limbs twitching, or your mind suspended in a strange, silent clarity, pause. Don't dismiss it. Don't reach for your phone or drown it in distractions. Sit in it, feel it, because you just returned from somewhere most people don't believe exists. And that turbulence, that flicker of intensity, that is your proof. You were never just asleep. You were traveling, you were remembering, you were becoming, and now you've landed again. The mission isn't over, it's only just begun. What if I told you that the moment you wake up, your entire day has already been written, and not by your conscious mind? Before your feet even touch the ground, before your first thought is fully formed, something deep within you has already set the tone, a mood, a vibration. A subtle script your subconscious has handed to you, based not on what you remember, but on what you felt in those final seconds of sleep. This isn't just morning fog or random emotion. It's guidance. It's a coded message from the deepest parts of your psyche, one that often goes ignored simply because it doesn't speak in words. It speaks in sensation. Most people don't realize it, but your subconscious is always working, quietly, constantly, especially when you sleep. While your conscious mind rests, your subconscious moves through layers of memory, emotion, symbolism, and unresolved experiences, processing, filtering, integrating. And when the night is nearly over, when your consciousness begins to rise toward waking, your subconscious delivers a final imprint. It's not a story you'll remember, it's not a list of instructions. It's a feeling, a temperature in your emotional field, a background frequency that hums underneath your morning thoughts. And it's powerful enough to shape how you see everything that follows. You might notice it if you wake up heavy, for no reason, or inspired, suddenly, with no clear source. You might feel distant from yourself, or unusually clear, tender, hopeful, afraid, at peace. And you think, it's just how I woke up. But it's not just that, it's how your subconscious scripted your return. You are stepping into the vibration it prepared for you, the atmosphere it created based on everything it processed while you were away. And more often than not, this script doesn't match the details of your dreams, it matches the meaning behind them. That's why your memory of a dream can fade, but the emotion it left behind can cling to you all day. You don't remember the images, but you feel the residue, a sadness you can't place, a longing, a confidence, an unspoken warning. This is your subconscious delivering its message in the only way it knows how, through metaphor, mood, and movement. It doesn't think in language, it speaks through association. And it's especially active in that final window before you wake, because that's when you're most receptive. Your conscious mind hasn't taken over yet. You're still porous, still open, still hovering between realms. This is the moment when your subconscious lays its final layer of paint onto the canvas of your awareness. It chooses colors based on what needs healing, what needs attention, what you've ignored, what you're ready to receive. If it gave you this information directly, if it showed you a list of your fears, or played you a reel of your suppressed desires, you'd resist it, you'd rationalize it, you'd shut it down. So it doesn't do that. It disguises the truth in feeling, in symbols, in a mood that feels like it came from nowhere, but actually came from deep within you. This is subconscious scripting, a phenomenon where your inner world frames the lens you look through, before you even know you're looking. It doesn't dictate every choice you'll make, but it colors the tone. It nudges your reactions. It determines what you notice, what you ignore, what you feel drawn toward, or pushed away from. And because most of this happens below the surface, it's easy to believe that the outside world is shaping your experience. But often, the truth is the opposite. You're responding not to what's out there, but to the emotional momentum that was handed to you before you even opened your eyes. You've experienced this momentum before. Maybe you woke up feeling irritated, and the smallest inconvenience set you off. Or maybe you woke up with a sense of optimism, and even setbacks couldn't shake your peace. That wasn't random. That was the subconscious setting a vibration and the external world conforming to it. Because energy leads, experience follows. And when you wake up with a particular vibration encoded in your body, you become a magnet for things that match it. That's why it's so important to become aware of your emotional state before you react to the world. That state was likely created long before your conscious mind rejoined the scene. This doesn't mean your day is fated. It means your starting point is more important than you think. And if you can meet that starting point with awareness, even curiosity, you begin to take back your power. You stop running on autopilot. You stop confusing the world's reflection with its cause. Because the truth is, your subconscious is showing you something every morning. It's trying to help, to warn, to guide, to soothe. But it doesn't shout. It whispers. And most of us are too busy, too distracted, too eager to be productive, to hear it. So what does this look like in practice? It means paying attention to what you feel the moment you wake, not just emotionally, but physically. What's the temperature of your body? What emotion is closest to the surface? What images, if any, drift through your mind? Even if they don't make sense, even if they seem random, they are clues. Because they weren't random to your subconscious. They were chosen, delivered in the final seconds of that liminal space where your soul still dances and your mind has not yet remembered who it's supposed to be. Sometimes, that message will be clear. A dream with a strong emotional charge, a thought that repeats, a sensation that demands your attention. Other times, it will be subtle, a melancholy, a softness, a spike of anxiety or a wash of warmth. Instead of brushing these off, sit with them. Ask them where they came from. Ask them what they're trying to show you. The subconscious doesn't respond well to force, but it opens under presence, under patience, under quiet curiosity. You might find, over time, that you begin to understand this invisible scripting more clearly. You begin to see how certain dreams always leave you feeling a certain way. You begin to notice patterns, emotions that point to unresolved tensions, longings that emerge after certain cycles of thought or behavior, and you begin to rewrite the narrative, not by erasing the script, but by becoming aware of it. When you know what you're waking up with, you have the power to decide how to respond, how to shift, how to invite a new energy in, instead of carrying yesterday's into today. Because you are not just a body that wakes up, you are a consciousness re-entering a story that you have the power to edit, to revise, to transform. And the subconscious is not your enemy. It is your most loyal collaborator. It remembers what you forget. It protects what you ignore. It knows what you need even when you don't know how to ask. And in the quiet moments before your alarm intrudes, it hands you the script it's written in the night, hoping you'll read between the lines. So tomorrow morning, instead of rushing to remember your to-do list, pause. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? And what might that feeling be trying to tell me? It doesn't need to make sense. It doesn't need to come with a name. But if you can stay with it, if you can receive it, you'll find that it's already guiding you. It always was. Not with logic, not with answers, but with a compass. And that compass, hidden in your waking emotion, might just be pointing you back to yourself. There's a breath, so subtle you almost never notice it, that occurs right before you fully return to the waking world. It isn't just the inhale that brings your body back to motion, it's something deeper. A flicker of intention, A sacred, suspended moment where your soul hovers between dimensions and faces a choice. Not the kind of choice your mind usually thinks about, not breakfast or appointments or responsibilities, but a deeper, spiritual decision. How will I return? What vibration will I carry into this day? Will I re-enter my identity with clarity, or fall back into the trance of forgetting? This moment doesn't last long. In fact, it barely lasts at all in physical terms. It passes before your eyes fully open, before you remember who you are, before the weight of the world has a chance to reattach itself. But within that sliver of silence is a doorway, one that opens only in this space between. Your soul stands at the threshold, not in front of you, not behind you, within you, holding all the insights, all the healing, all the messages gathered from the realm you've just returned from. And in that instant, it decides, will I carry this into form, or will I leave it behind once again? This is the soul's choice point. It happens every time you sleep, every time you return, and though you may not be aware of it, your entire life is shaped by the accumulation of those micro-decisions. Whether you awaken with a lightness or a burden, whether you feel peace for no reason, or anxiety you can't explain, whether you find yourself stepping into old patterns, or breaking free without fully understanding why, these are not random. These are echoes of the choice made in that moment just before your awareness becomes rooted once more in the physical. Free will is not something that begins when you open your eyes. It's alive even in your most subtle states, especially there. In that liminal space, where your spirit hasn't yet picked up the costume of your identity, there is unparalleled honesty. No masks, no social roles, just you, raw, luminous, vast. And from that place, you see clearly. You remember the agreements you made before this lifetime. You recall your wounds not with shame, but with compassion. You feel your lessons not as punishments, but as sacred puzzles, waiting for your touch. You see the people in your life as soul mirrors rather than obstacles. And for a moment, you remember. But memory is fragile in the waking world. So the question becomes, what will you bring back? Will you hold the wisdom, even if you forget the vision? Will you embody the shift, even if you don't recall the dream? Because remembering isn't about memory, it's about frequency, it's about integration. And this choice point is the moment your soul decides how much light you're ready to carry into your day. Not more than you can handle, never more than you're prepared to hold, but always enough to evolve you, if you say yes. Sometimes the choice is made gently, with grace and subtlety. You wake up feeling calm, and that calm stays with you. You notice beauty in things you usually overlook. You speak softer, you judge less. You pause where you used to react. These are the signs that your soul chose to carry something through. Other times, the choice is more dramatic. You wake with tears in your eyes and don't know why. You feel a burning to change something, a relationship, a habit, a path, and that feeling doesn't fade. That's not just emotion, that's sacred momentum. It means your soul said yes. It chose wisdom over looping. And then, there are the mornings where everything feels heavy. Not just tired, but spiritually fogged. As if the light never made it all the way back with you. This too is part of the dance. Not every journey ends in clarity. Sometimes, your soul returns still unsure, still processing, or simply not yet ready to carry the lesson back through the veil. And that's okay. There is no punishment, only rhythm, only cycles of becoming. You'll get another chance. You always get another chance. The choice point comes again with each sleep, with each return. But if you want to become conscious in that moment, if you want to begin participating more fully in your own evolution, then you must begin to notice it, not with your mind, but with your presence. When you wake, don't leap out of bed, don't rush to fill the silence. Instead, linger. Feel your body reassemble itself around you. Observe the subtle shift as your awareness clicks back into place. And within that stillness, ask, what did I bring back? What wants to stay? What truth is trying to land before my day begins? You don't need to remember the dream, you only need to receive its essence. If you listen, you might catch a phrase, a symbol, a wave of emotion that doesn't seem connected to anything in your life. That is your soul speaking. That is your spiritual memory stepping forward. And that is your invitation to carry more light into form, not because you're forced to, but because you're choosing to. This moment, this checkpoint, is not given to you by external forces. It is not handed down by unseen beings or orchestrated by fate. It is born from within you, created by your own soul as a pause between dimensions. A breath that says, "I've gathered something valuable. Am I ready to embody it?" And in that space, you choose. You choose whether to awaken with remembrance or remain in the loop of forgetting. And perhaps most importantly, this choice ripples. It doesn't just affect your mood or your energy. It shifts your timeline. It realigns your trajectory. The version of you that says yes to carrying wisdom walks a subtly different path, one that leads towards synchronicities, soul alignments, and deeper peace. The version of you that says not yet may find themselves repeating familiar patterns, revisiting old wounds, not as a failure, but as a continuation. Each path is sacred, each choice honored, but only one accelerates your return to truth. So when you wake tomorrow, treat it as a sacred return, not just to the world, but to yourself, to your mission, to your deeper knowing. That breath you take before your first thought, that is the threshold. That is the moment your soul hovers with a gift in hand, waiting for your permission to plant it, and you are free to say yes. You are free to say not yet, but understand this. Every time you choose to remember, not with your mind, but with your being, you change, quietly, powerfully, irreversibly. The veil between worlds is thin, thinner than you've been told. And in the moment before waking, it is transparent. That is your window. That is your opportunity. And within it, your soul stands tall, whole and wise and unburdened, asking only one question: will you carry this truth with you, or leave it behind until you're ready? You may not hear the question with your ears, but you'll feel it in your chest, in your breath, in the way the light enters your eyes differently. And if you answer with presence, with courage, with the quiet yes of the heart, then what returns with you will begin to shape everything. Not overnight, but surely, because that is how the soul works, not through force, but through choice, one sacred moment at a time. What if I told you that the last thing to wake up in the morning is you? Not the deeper you, not the consciousness that dreams or travels or receives messages in the night, but the you the world sees. The one with a name, a past, a role to play. That part, the identity you carry through your day, isn't the first to return, it's the last. And when it does, it doesn't arrive like a quiet friend slipping into the room. It arrives like a mask snapping back onto the actor's face. The moment before that, when you're still unmasked, still untitled, still hovering, is where the magic hides. In those final seconds before waking, something curious happens. You're not quite aware of your story yet. You don't remember your obligations, your relationships, your patterns. For just a breath, there's no role to perform, no self to manage. You are presence without identity, pure awareness, just being. And then suddenly, it returns. The I slips back in. Your name forms in the back of your mind. Your memories fall into place like books reshelving themselves after a storm. The emotional tone of your life floods back into your chest. The story reboots, and with it, the ego resumes its role. Most people don't notice this transition. It's quick, seamless, often disguised as clarity. You might say, "Okay, time to get up," without realizing that phrase marked the return of your mask. You might immediately begin recounting the tasks of the day, mentally preparing for conversations, worries, or victories, as if they'd never left. But they had. They weren't there when you were floating. They weren't there when your soul was checking in, or when your subconscious was handing you messages wrapped in emotion. The ego waited, because it can't exist in that in-between space. It has no power there. This is what makes that transitional moment so profound. For just a second, you are whole without being anyone in particular. You're not your past, you're not your beliefs. You're not your labels or your traumas or your titles. You're not even you as you know yourself. You are simply awareness, raw, expansive, untethered. But the ego doesn't like this. It wants form. It wants structure. It wants identity. So it rushes back in, not maliciously, but dutifully. It says, "Here, let me remind you who you are. Let me organize this vastness into something manageable. Wear this name again, carry this burden. Remember your unfinished business. The ego is not evil. It's a function, a necessary interface for this reality. But it is a mask nonetheless, a filter through which your pure consciousness interacts with the world. And each morning, that mask reattaches itself. It doesn't ask for permission, it simply arrives. And if you're not aware of it, you slip into it without question. You become the actor without realizing you're still on the stage. But if you can see it, if you can recognize the moment it returns, you gain something rare, the ability to choose how tightly you wear it. Because the mask isn't supposed to suffocate you. It's supposed to assist you. It's not meant to define your soul, only to express it. But when you forget that it's a mask, when you believe it is you, you start to confuse survival with truth. You react instead of respond. You live from memory instead of presence. You repeat instead of evolve. And yet every morning, you are gifted a chance to remember the difference. You are offered a glimpse of yourself before the ego climbs back into the driver's seat. You may have felt this subtly, that moment when you lie in bed and everything is still, soft, undefined. You're not thinking about who you need to be yet. You're just feeling, breathing, existing, and then, snap, the thoughts start. The to-do list appears, your preferences kick in, your name, your story, your emotional patterns, all of it flows back into your field. You've put the mask back on. Sometimes it fits easily, other times it feels like armor, heavy, tight, inflexible. That's a clue. That's your soul letting you know that maybe, just maybe, this version of self needs loosening. You see, the ego is a construction, a useful one. It remembers what you like and don't like. It holds the map of your personality, your habits, your cultural conditioning, but it's not fixed. It adapts, it evolves, and if you're conscious of its return, if you meet it gently instead of blindly, you can shape it with intention. You can say, I'll wear this role today, but I won't forget that it's a role. I'll respond to the world, but I won't let it rewrite my essence. This awareness becomes even more important when your ego brings back pain. Sometimes, the identity that reboots is heavy with fear, regret, or shame. You wake up and feel it instantly. The anxiety, the dread, the ache of something unresolved. But now you know, that wasn't you when you were floating in the space between. That wasn't present in your soul's stillness. It arrived with the ego. And that means you can question it. You can hold it with compassion. But you don't have to let it steer you. This is why morning practice, stillness, breath, reflection, matters so deeply. It gives you time to notice the mask before it fuses. It gives you space to ask, do I want to return to that version of me? Is there a softer, truer version I can live today? You're not trying to destroy the ego. You're simply letting your soul choose the mask instead of defaulting to yesterday's version. And that one decision changes everything. It changes how you speak, how you listen, how you respond to conflict, how you hold boundaries, how you forgive, because you're not reacting from a fixed identity, you're acting from presence, from choice, from connection with the deeper you that never left, even when the ego took over. That version of you is still there, beneath the mask, guiding you with gentle nudges and quiet truth. And every morning, you are invited to reconnect with it before the performance begins. So the next time you wake up, slow down. Linger in that space before the name returns. Before your timeline kicks in, feel who you are without the story. That stillness isn't emptiness. It's your most expansive self. It's where freedom lives. And when the ego returns, and it will, welcome it. But don't let it consume you. Let it serve you. Let it reflect the highest truth of who you are, not the fears and patterns you've outgrown. Because you are not the mask. You are the one who wears it. You are the actor, yes, but more importantly, you are the awareness beneath the performance. And in that 1 second before you fully wake, you remember, you are. The rest is costume, language, theater, necessary, beautiful, but never the whole story. And if you hold that truth as you move into your day, you will find that life becomes less about survival and more about expression, less about clinging to identity and more about becoming. The ego returns, but now, so does your power. There is something mysterious about morning, something most people feel but cannot name. It's not just the return of the sun or the stillness before the world wakes. It's something older, deeper, something that reaches through the veil and brushes your soul softly before your mind remembers how to think. You've felt it before, haven't you? That quiet moment, suspended between sleep and wakefulness, where everything feels slower, softer, and strangely significant. You may not have known what it was, but you sensed it. An invitation, a whisper, a moment that felt like it was waiting for something from you. And that's exactly what it is, an invitation. Not from the universe above or some faraway force, but from within, from the deepest part of you. That moment, those 3 seconds right before you fully wake, are not ordinary. They are not leftover fragments of sleep. They are sacred. They are checkpoints, where your soul, still glimmering with the light of the dream realm, has one final chance to leave you with something essential. Not words, always, not even images, but resonance. Direction. A thread of truth that can shape your entire day, if you choose to listen. The world will try to pull you away from it immediately. The noise starts fast. Messages, memories, plans, problems. Your brain begins organizing your identity, your schedule, your roles. But before all that, before the thoughts flood in, you exist in a raw state of clarity. It's subtle, yes, but it's real. And that subtlety is where the transformation lives. In those 3 seconds, the version of you who remembers the truth of who you are, not the name, not the history, but the essence, stands right there, holding out a gift, every single morning, without fail. You've met this version of yourself before, even if you didn't realize it. It's the part of you that wakes up sometimes with a sudden knowing, the urge to change your life, to call someone, to forgive, to let go. The part of you that whispers a message into your chest just as your eyes flutter open. It's time. You don't need that anymore. You're not broken. There's more waiting. These aren't random thoughts. They are the last echoes of your higher self before the veil fully descends. The final ripple of soul truth before you put your feet on the floor and begin the dance of being human again. And here's the miracle. You don't have to chase this sacred moment. You don't need to perform rituals or seek some special training to access it. It already belongs to you. It always has. The question is not whether it's happening. It's whether you're noticing. Because that space, that invitation, is present every single day. Whether you're exhausted or inspired. Whether you feel lost or aligned. Whether you're in joy or pain. That window opens, always. And through it, your soul asks just one question. Are you awake, or are you only awake on the surface? Waking up doesn't begin when your alarm goes off. It doesn't begin when you open your eyes. It begins when you choose to meet that invitation with reverence, instead of resistance. When you realize that every morning is not just a continuation of yesterday, but a rebirth, a new lifetime, in miniature, a fresh agreement between your soul and your body, a chance to carry the codes you retrieved in sleep into the canvas of your day. And when you treat that threshold with awareness, even just for a moment, something shifts. Your day stops being a series of reactions and becomes a ritual, a creation, a quiet miracle unfolding in real time. This isn't about adding pressure. It's not about doing anything perfectly. It's about remembering that your life is made not just of actions, but of choices. And some of the most important choices are the ones made in silence, before the world knows you're awake. That's when your soul speaks the loudest, not in volume, but in truth. That's when it hands you the vibration it hopes you'll carry forward, the energy it gathered from wherever it just returned from, whether that's healing from old timelines, messages from your guides, or simply the reminder that you are not your fear, not your past, not your limits. You might begin to see your mornings differently now. You might feel a strange reverence the next time you wake, a stillness you once ignored, but now cherish. You might notice that brief flicker of knowing, and instead of brushing it off, you pause, you breathe, you feel, and in that pause, you accept the invitation. You say yes to carrying more light. Yes to remembering your deeper self. Yes to moving through the day not just as a person surviving, but as a soul expressing. And perhaps most beautifully, you'll realize this wasn't a new discovery. It was a homecoming. Because deep down, you've always known. You've always felt it, that mysterious sacredness woven into the edge of every morning, that sense that something bigger was trying to reach you through the softness. That you were being spoken to, not by someone else, but by a deeper version of yourself, the you who sees clearly, the you who has been waiting patiently for you to remember what you are. Now, you have a name for it. Now, you understand. And with that understanding comes power. Not the kind of power that controls or conquers, but the kind that gently reclaims. Reclaims your awareness, your presence, your ability to choose each day with intention rather than inertia, to rise with remembrance rather than routine, to meet the world not as someone who's barely waking up, but as someone who has just returned, soul intact, truth in hand. That is the invitation hidden in every morning, and it is yours, always has been, always will be. Whether you accept it is up to you. But just know, the moment you choose to truly wake, even for a few seconds longer, your entire life will begin to shift. Not all at once, not with thunder, but with grace, with quiet clarity. With the kind of change that echoes through every corner of your being. So tomorrow morning, when that flicker of stillness greets you, linger. Don't rush to move. Don't let the noise steal it. Feel it. Honor it. Let your soul hand you what it brought back. Because in that moment, you're not just waking up. You're remembering who you really are. And in that remembrance, everything begins.